and welcome everybody. And on behalf of the Kalinga Literary Festival, this is Nishtha Gautam extending a very warm welcome to everybody who has tuned in and to the panelists that I have today with me, Vineet Bajpai. Vineet, thank you so much for agreeing to do this talk for Kalinga Literary Festival. And I would like to apologize to everybody for the slight delay because of certain issues that are not there in anybody's hands these days, the technical glitches. So yes, we are finally here, and we, as in me and Vineet, we promise to make this session a full Paisa Vasool for everybody who's tuned in. Right, Vineet?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nishtha. It's great to be here. Two reasons. One, because it's such a privilege and such an honor to be associated to KLF. And two, because I'm getting to meet you again. And, we met earlier this year. And how times have changed. I think the last time we met, we were on a stage with probably 200 people in front of us on a sunny afternoon. Here we are sitting in our respective homes and connecting. So yes, a lot has changed, I think, in the last few months, but it's an absolute delight to see you.
Thank you so much. You're being very kind, Vineet, after the session in Jaipur, because, after that particular session, Mr. Kaul was like, oh my God, Nishtha, you are such a tough moderator. But then, I had to do that, right? But today, I promise to be a lot sweeter.
Thank you very much. That's what friends are for. And you do have a fearsome reputation. So in fact, when you were getting that, I'll have to spend lesser time with you, facing your grueling questions. But no, I think I just shoot right ahead. And I think let's try and make it as interesting as we can for the people listening.
Right. So, Vineet, my first question is about the writing process. You're an entrepreneur. You have हिंदी में कहावत है, और आपको हिंदी बहुत अच्छे से आती है. हिंदी में कहावत है, घाट घाट का पानी पीना. So you have done quite a fair bit of that. You have done this and that and more. And finally, you're a full-time writer now. So now, what made you do this transition in your life? Because it's not just a career transition, it's also a transition of a certain worldview.
Nishtha, first of all, जो आपने हिंदी के बारे में बोला, तो मैं उसमें बस एक छोटी सी आपसे गुजारिश करूंगा कि उसी बात को अगर हम थोड़ा सा दूसरे ढंग से बोल दें, घाट घाट का पानी पीना थोड़ा सा अजीब सा लगता है, तो मैं उसको हरफन मौला कहना चाहूंगा, जिसको anyway, I'm just kidding. I understand what you're asking, and to be honest, I'm very happy that you feel that I've become a full-time writer, because it's great if that image is going out, because that probably shows presence in the industry in a full-time manner, in the book trade in a full-time manner. But actually, I'm not a full-time writer. I continue to run my companies. My first company, Magnon, is amongst the top 5 advertising groups in India. My second company, Talent Track, is India's largest platform for the media and entertainment sectors. Hiring, we have more than 400,000 artists, on the platform. So I continue to drive my companies, but I'm very happy that you think or you get the perception that I'm a full-time writer.
But I thought you've hired very well-paid CEOs to manage your companies on an everyday basis while you focus on your writing. Or are you still hands-on?
No, I'm pretty much hands-on, and my writing process is still unfortunately restricted only to the weekends and late night. And I can say, with greatest conviction that if I had not been running those companies, I would have been a full-time writer, because that's how much I'm connected to the world of literature and writing and books and words. I absolutely love doing that. And all of us we all have this dream of one day when I will hang my boots and do things that I really want to do. So I also imagine myself, just writing books, just promoting books, just speaking to people like you and attending literature festivals. But yes, let's see when that day comes. Right now, it seems pretty far.
Right. Now, the related question for you would be, Vineet, when did you really decide to write the kind of books that you're writing? You're not writing management type ka kitabe or the business related books. You're writing a very different kind of book, right? And that book is actually getting liked, and then it propels you to write another book in the same manner, right? Because when I look at your collection, in a very short time, you've been able to sort of create a niche for yourself that, okay, I am writing historical fiction and a certain kind of historical fiction. So was that a very deliberate decision?
Nishtha, it was actually a process which, I think I evolved, as a writer. So my latest book, it's called 1857, The Sword of Mastan, is about to release in the next 1 or 2 months. And that's going to be my 8th book. And it's going to be my 5th fiction novel. My first 3 books were actually essentially business and, inspirational books. They were all published by JECO. In fact, I wrote my first book, Built from Scratch, which is a book for entrepreneurs and startups. And I wrote this book way back in the year 2004. From then, then for the next 3 to 4 years, I wrote my next book called The Street to the Highway, and finally The 30-something CEO, which released in 2016. So from 2004 to 2016, in that 12-year period, I wrote 3 business books. And they were very successful. Huge amount of love and respect came their way. But you're absolutely right. It was only late in 2016 that I felt that, something inside me felt that I should write fiction. I was seeing the work being done in India in historical fiction genre, in the mythological fiction genre. And while, of course, some very excellent work has been done, and I'll be very candid with you, and some people might laugh, and I might get brickbats for this, but my self-perception was, when I read those works, I felt, this can be done better, and it needs to be done differently. And while I took a lot of inspiration from, a few authors who started this genre, I really felt compelled. And as we progress through this interaction, I'll probably, share those reasons why I felt compelled. But yes, to answer your question, it's been a journey. Like I said, it's my 8th book now. First 3 were business books. Last 5 have been fiction novels. So let's see where we go from here.
Right. Now, I want to know a little more about, you had told me earlier in Jaipur about your upcoming book, 1857. Now, my question this time is slightly different. That when it comes to historical fiction, there is always a certain slant. So there are certain elements in history that you want to highlight, and the others you don't want to either touch or you want to reimagine them.
Yeah.
What is that process for you? How do you sift those elements of history, of recorded history, that you want to use for your fiction?
So Nishtha, I must tell you that amongst all the literature festivals that I've attended, or public interactions that I've had, this is probably one of the most intelligent questions I've faced. And that is because this is truly at the very core, at the very nucleus of doing the kind of work that I'm doing. And there are 2 elements to it. One is, the slant you mentioned. One is how much research material is available for which side of history. And the second is your own personal biases, right? I mean, as writers and people producing content, we try to be as neutral and unbiased as possible in being able to create content which touches the hearts of millions of readers, without you appearing to be supporting either one side or the other. So there are these 2 elements that really need to be kept in mind. So for example, when I was writing Harappa, the research was absolutely fascinating because it took me into, when I was writing Harappa and then Pralay and then Kashi, I was going deeper and deeper into the research of, the Aryan invasion theory, whether there was actually an invasion or was it all just created, by a certain section of historians. From there, the Saraswati civilization, the vanishing of the river. So the research was absolutely fascinating. Similarly, when I started writing Mastan, the first book, like Harappa was a trilogy, Mastan is two books. The first was Mastan, the Fallen Patriot of Delhi. So I really wanted to. I've always been a Delhiite. I love this city. I've done schooling here, college here, MBA here, work here, everything. So I love this city so deeply that I always wanted to do work, on Delhi. And my own view of Delhi, my own view of how this city has emerged and what its history has in store, and especially the chapter of the Great Mutiny, or the first War of Independence of 1857. That was, I felt, under researched. It was under fictionalized. If you go back, every time we speak about 1857, it just ends up on a conversation about Mangal Pandey. But the fact of the matter is that there was a lot more that happened, and the epicenter of that action was in Delhi. And
Yes.
and in that book, I've really tried to, like you just said, the slant. I've really tried to bring out a very real presentation of Delhi, what Delhi used to be at that time, what was Delhi, like. We've seen works of some Western historians on, their interpretation of 1857. There is this nationalistic view of 1857, which says that, it was the first War of Independence, which I support, and which is the direction I take. But there were a lot of things that fall in the gray area of. A gray area of who was right and who was wrong, and of course we know there's enough material, enough work to know that the British were exploiting India. The East India Company was an imperialistic monster, and we all know, and some very latest work has gives irrefutable evidence for that. But yes, for example, the Bibigarh massacre of Kanpur, where about 120 British women and children were hacked to pieces and stuffed into a well. Now, those are things that we normally avoid because we want to take a more glowing view of history. So yes, those slants exist. But what I try to do is minimize the absence of research material, try to work harder in that direction and make sure it doesn't impact my work. And also try and keep my biases, my personal biases away. And be, and present the story the way it should be presented.
Right. So my second question, you have actually anticipated it in your answer about this nationalistic stance, because you cannot talk about 1857 without taking a certain stand on nationalism, whether it was merely a Sepoy Mutiny or it was India's first War of Independence. Right, and you raised a very interesting question about whether we are comfortable talking about the massacre of British women and children. Now there is a memorial for them in Lucknow, and I'm sure you have visited that, and that's a very uncomfortable aspect. So it's uncomfortable because you see a glorification of sorts of the colonial enterprise in the country, and you see, there is lament for the oppressor when the tables were turned against them. Yeah. But you also tend to empathize with the women and children, or people in those households that had nothing to do really with that colonial enterprise. Of course, they were benefiting from that. I mean, let's not deny that crucial aspect. They were, of course, getting benefited, but they were not directly involved. They were innocent collaterals, as it were. Yeah. So, what is your stand as the writer of these two books? Have you taken an overtly nationalistic stance, or have you tried to be a little more objective?
Nishtha, to answer this question, I think we will have to, very quickly just delve into a little bit of background, of 1857. And like you said, whether it was, the first war of independence or it was a Sepoy Mutiny, we need to go into a little background to be able to understand. And why I'm saying this is that if we don't do that, we face the danger of being labeled as nationalists even when we are actually writing or narrating something which is hugely supported by historical evidence. Uh, Now, first of all, we must remember that 1857 also suffered from what all wars and what all revolutions suffer from. They all start with a glowing objective. They all start with a glowing sense of patriotism and some very, very high ideals. But finally, I would say primal savage violence just takes over. And you can go into the First World War, the Second World War, wars between countries, civil wars. Somebody or some group always starts it believing that it's a great revolution and it is something that will change society for the better. But eventually there is so much of savagery that actually kicks in that we all forget what it all really started for. But a very important element, like I said, is to delve into what was happening. The important thing to understand is that in our NCRT books and the education that we've been imparted, you will always study this chapter on the causes of the mutiny of 1857, and they would speak about all the factors that were happening before, and then the grease cartridges being the immediate reason. But there is a very deeper element. And that deeper element is to understand that if there was a Sepoy mutiny, who were these Sepoys? These were Sepoys primarily hailing from UP and Bihar and some areas of Bengal. And these were precisely the areas where a generation before, land reforms by the British had ensured that the Indian peasant had been rendered landless. And in fact, it was the East India Company which made, when the zamindari system was introduced, the Indian peasant, the Indian farmer was rendered landless. It was the children of those landless farmers who actually made the you will always see that the sepoys of the East India Company, they were always termed as Purabiye. When you read history, some of them are called Tilange, but most of them are called Purabiye, because the region where the hiring used to happen for the East India Company's army were the regions of UP and Bihar, and they were basically the children of landless farmers who had been rendered landless by the British. So while we do look at all the immediate factors and we do look at the violence that unfolded in Meerut and then in Delhi and then in Kanpur and then in Lucknow, what we don't understand was that this was a pressure cooker waiting to explode, because there was 2 centuries or 1.5 centuries of oppression, which was behind, which was in the background. Yes, of course, we also have to understand who were these people, who were the sepoys who were really fighting. If they were fighting only for a sepoy mutiny, they would not have tried to unify the entire movement under Bahadur Shah Zafar's regime. So they were fighting for a liberated Hindustan. There is no question about that. Their methods, we have to understand, they were illiterate people. They were simpletons who did not have leadership, who did not have the advantage of the the literature of Karl Marx to guide them. They did not have leaders like Mahatma Gandhi to show them the path of non-violence. They were people who came together and said, we need to liberate this country. And yes, excesses were committed, but I also must remind you that the 120 women and children that were killed in Kanpur at Bibigarh, or whatever happened in Meerut or various other places, it gave the British Retribution Force, the Delhi Field Force, a war cry called Remember Kanpur. And against the killing of those 120 women and children, do you know that within the first 24 hours of the British retaking the walled city, 26,000 Indians were butchered on the streets? So there were, and what was the war slogan? Remember Kanpur. So so there were atrocities committed from the Indian side, which is, I would say, which is what has taken away the sheen of unblemished martyrdom, from those people, those forces, those freedom fighters. And today we talk about Bhagat Singh and Chandrasekhar Azad and all the glorious freedom fighters of this country. We don't speak about the sepoys of 1857 with the same love, with the same affection and glory, probably because of those few mistakes that they committed. But they and the Indians paid a 100x price, for that. And I must also tell you that for 2 years after the mutiny, the British went to, because they had all records of all sepoys and everything, they went to every village. The sepoys who, after the Battle of Delhi was over and they went back to their villages, they were hunted down and hanged in makeshift trials which were held in villages. So I think the price that was paid was 100x. I'm not saying it justifies any violence that happened from the Indian side, but like I said, I think this is the method of war. I think this is the fate of war. It starts with a glorious purpose, and then I think primal instinct just takes over.
I'm so glad that you mentioned the phrase primal instinct, because all your books have this undercurrent of that primal instinct. There is violence, and like gory violence. In Harappa, for example, yes, there is.
Yes, that is I think more of the the thriller element of the writing that I do. I consider myself very fortunate that I'm able to touch upon some very profound chapters of history. Some chapters of history, like I said, the Aryan invasion theory. When you try and do research, you will find enough material supporting the hypothesis or the theory of the invasion. You will find enough material which is which opposes that theory and says that there was never an Aryan invasion, and actually the whole of Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, and all of that continued. They were all indigenous people. They were all truly Indians, and the reason why they moved to the Gangetic Belt was because of some climatic changes or because of some either a flood or a big earthquake. Nobody really knows. But I really find myself fortunate that I'm able to write about such chapters of history, whether it's the Harappan civilization, the Saraswati Sabhyata, or 1857. And that allows me to fulfill my role as a writer, my role as somebody who wants to, in his own way, without being a historian, very strictly as a storyteller, but who makes a small attempt to also offer a more corrected view of Indian history written by Indians. And for us to depend less on the work that has been, that we have inherited from Western historians for so many decades. But like I said, I'm a storyteller. And why I feel, just last month, the Harappa trilogy crossed 2 lakh copies. And I feel
and
that...
Also, please talk about the acquisition by of the series by Reliance.
Yes, so we've crossed 2 lakh copies. The Harappa trilogy is now coming out. It's already out in Hindi. It's now coming out in Gujarati, Marathi, Tamil, Odia, Bangla. And of course, then we'll move to Tamil, Malayalam, these languages, because I truly feel it has that potential. The Hindi belt has really loved the books. I'm showered with love, coming from readers. And like I said, so I feel I'm very fortunate. I'm able to speak to readers in their own language, able to speak about, these important aspects of history. I am, already thinking of writing about Nalanda and the burning of the Nalanda library and the invasion of Bakhtiyar Khilji. Mm-hmm. But the point is that we, these are so many important chapters that we need to cover. What is special is, and what is, I think, enjoyable is that I'm able to put it in the form of a story. I'm very, very fortunate that a lot of big newspapers, big publications, television channels have compared my work to the works of Dan Brown, to George R.R. Martin. And I think that what can be better if I'm able to take, my opinion and my, perspective of history, mix it into a story that makes it comparable. I don't think I'm comparable to them, but, some media has been really kind. But if it can be compared, there are hundreds of writers have written to me, readers have written to me saying that when is the Harappa trilogy coming on screen, because this is going to be India's answer to the Game of Thrones. So the violence is the thriller part, which makes it, an interesting and exciting story. And I think I've been very fortunate. Readers have loved that. And like you said, Reliance Entertainment, has taken the screen rights for the Harappa trilogy. Hopefully, we should see it either as a very high-profile 3-season web series or 2 big films like Bahubali. Of course, these are challenging times. So once all the shootings start again, hopefully you will hear some great news.
Oh, fantastic. Right. On a related note, Vineet, do you see a conflict when it comes to writing books the way you are writing them, and the way your readers may or okay, let me start with this hypothesis. For so this is fiction, okay? 1857, Mastan, the fallen soldier. So it's fiction. Yes, it is. It is constructed around a moment, a very important moment in Indian history. And say, as a reader, I tell you that, oh my God, yeah, this is fantastic, and I'm sure this is what had happened, because that's the power of fiction. Right? It convinces you to believe. For example, and I'm glad you mentioned Dan Brown, the Google searches that dominated, and internet was still, it was not as widely accessible. I was in college then when Dan Brown's first novel had come out. And everybody was like, okay, is it true or is it not? Lot of people, I mean, apart from serious historians who knew that it was all fiction, there were people, regular lay readers who were thinking that, oh my God, maybe there is something called the rose line, the blood line, and all those things about Christ's life that still befuddles a lot of people. So do you think that there is this conflict that you are creating, that this may have happened? And because alternate facts are easily disseminated, and they're easily consumed, and people like to believe all the conspiracy theories.
It's so enjoyable being with you, Nishtha, because you ask all these wonderful questions, and they are such, it's great for a writer to see somebody who's asking questions which are so insightful. And I must tell you that what you've said is bang on, and it's 100% correct, because I have received hundreds of emails or Facebook messages or Twitter messages or messages on Instagram where readers have thanked me for telling them the right side of history. A lot of them have said, thank you for telling us, the reality of Harappa and the reality of the Indus Valley civilization and Saraswati River and all of that, because, so far we've only been reading Western historians. Now, even when you read Mastan and its sequel and concluding part 1857, you will find Mirza Ghalib there, and you will find Mir Taqi Mir there. You will go half a century before that and find Tipu Sultan. And you will find William Hodgson, who shot the 2 sons and grandson of Babu Shah Zafar. You will find John Nicholson, who was famous, as his forces were called the Nikal Sen. He was worshipped as a god. You will find all of these characters. You will find Zeenat Mahal. You will find, a lot of them. You will also find a breezing chapter or 2 on Mangal Pandey, because I felt my ode to that freedom fighter. I couldn't have written a book without offering my way of fictionalized respect to him. So all of those characters are there, and when you read the book, you will truly feel that. And if you read the reviews, a lot of readers say that it's like being in Delhi. Reading Mastan is like being in Delhi during the time of the 1857 siege of the capital, and we actually live the streets and the alleyways and the mohallas of Delhi. So of course there is this element of a blurry line that gets created. But I must tell you that everything that you find in my books, of course, there's a big legal disclaimer right at the beginning where I free myself from all controversy and say that I make no claims to, the correctness of anything which is mentioned historically or mythologically. But, I'm sharing this with you. That is more of a legal safeguard. But everything that I mention in my books, which is related to uh, history or any historical event, they are well researched and they are true. A lot of them sound unbelievable, but they are true. To give you an example, uh, you know in uh, in Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, before the whole excavation happened and before it was brought out to the world, there was a British contingent which consisted of two brothers called the Brunton brothers, and I think Alexander Campbell was also with them, where the first ruins of Harappa that were found were actually blasted with dynamite, and the pieces of that city were used as railway ballast for a line between Multan and Lahore. So this is a historical fact that will shock today's world, because a civilization or a country as supposedly as forward-looking as Britain, so to speak, what would you expect such a country to do when they find archaeological remains of what could be the oldest civilization of the world? Would you expect them to blow it up and use it as railway ballast? So not very many people know this. I don't think even 1% of Indians know this. So I bring it to the fore so that even these hidden chapters, hidden elements of reality, are brought to the fore. When we write about Mangal Pandey in 1857, there was actually a person called Havaldar Sheikh Paltu who was mysteriously murdered a few days after Mangal Pandey was hanged, because he was the person who held Mangal Pandey and did not allow him to fire a shot at a British officer. So there was a Havaldar Sheikh Paltu. He was murdered. What a writer like me does is he writes the story of Mangal Pandey. He writes that episode of Barrackpur. He writes about all of this, but gives because it is not known by anybody, we give a little element that actually it was Mastan who who avenges Mangal Pandey and kills Sheikh Paltu. So that is the only liberty I take. I can't speak for anybody else, but that's the only liberty I take. But otherwise, everything that I mention, I try and be very, very responsible, because I know people read my books with so much love. They feel so connected to the story. When a character dies in any of my books, I get hundreds of emails, of emotional readers. When the hero of Harappa, when Vidyut, who is in love with a girl called Damini, when he gets attracted to another girl called Naina, I get hundreds and thousands of emails, from my readers saying, "How can you allow him to do this?" So I know, all this love comes with a lot of responsibility. A lot of my readers really depend on what I'm writing, and I will give you very quickly a very small example about Amar Chitra Katha. And there was a time, as a child, I was an avid reader of Amar Chitra Katha, and there was a time that I was watching this debate happening on TV, and one of the guys actually said, "Aapke paas iska kya evidence hai?" And the other person said, "I've read it in an Amar Chitra Katha." And that was the credibility of Amar Chitra Katha, and that is why I think 1.5 generations of this country grew up reading Amar Chitra Katha, and that is the benchmark that I keep in my mind. That I am offering entertainment, I am offering thriller reading, I am offering a lot of fantasy and all of that. But if I am writing about history and mythology, I have to be extremely responsible, and so far I think I've been able to pull that off.
Right. Now, another question, because you interact quite a bit with your readers. Have you received an email or a letter or a message from any of your readers that has made you think very deeply about the kind of books that you're writing? Because often it happens is that the reception of a particular book if it's overwhelmingly good, then you're on a certain kind of high. But even then, there would be that line of a very honest sort of criticism that would come from a reader and not from a professional critic, that would make you like, oh, I have to think about that. Has it ever happened to you?
Oh, it happens all the time, Nishtha, and it happens both ways. Thankfully, it happens more on the positive side. There are some emails which touch you so deeply that they make everything that you're doing worthwhile. I remember, this lady called Malti Murugesan. She wrote to me back in 2017, and her mail said that, Vineet, I have just given birth to twins, and they're lying next to me, and I'm going through a lot of difficult time because there is pain and there is physical weakness. She says, but I must tell you that reading your books makes me forget all my pain, makes me forget all my postpartum issues, and takes me into another world. Now that is something which is more than $1 million for a writer. If you can impact somebody to that extent. Similarly, there was a professor from Pune, a retired professor, I remember his name, Professor Hegde, and he wrote to me and he said that he was full of praise, and he actually said that your books remind me of the great James Hadley Chase. And then he said that, Vineet, I've not seen any good science fiction writer from India, but looking at your writing, I feel that you can do it. You're the only one who can write some awesome science fiction. So these are the positive ones where you feel that, okay, you're really impacting the readers in a very nice way. But there are also, thankfully, like I said, very few, but some emails do come. So, for example, a person wrote to me and said, Vineet, I've loved your books, but I'm disappointed at the way you've treated Vidyut's character. And he says that, you're calling him a devta, but you've shown him smoking, you've shown him drinking, you've shown him, falling for another girl. And then he suggested to me that, before you write another book, you should read K.M. Munshi's books about Sri Krishna.
Yes.
And, that's how you should have represented Vidyut, because when you are making people believe and, so connected to that character, how can that character be smoking? So yes, of course, I've got a lot of, very deeply, very emotionally connected readers writing to me. And that, like I said, once again, hugely puts a lot of responsibility on me. And which is why you will notice, Nishtha, that in each book, whether it is Harappa, Pralay, Kashi, Mastan, or now 1857, in each book, I write about the importance of all faiths living together in close harmony. I speak about about women empowerment in a very, very sincere manner. I speak about against the caste system, in a very, very serious manner. So I feel that if I have been given the responsibility or the opportunity of a big platform of books which are going to be read, they say every book that is sold is read by 3 people.
Yeah.
2 people in the family, then a friend will borrow it. So if your books, say, have sold 300,000 copies, you are actually impacting the minds of 1 million people. And that is a huge responsibility. So I take this very seriously. And sometimes some people have written to me, why do you introduce these preachy paragraphs in, when the whole thriller story is going on, why do you have to speak about this? And I feel that I would be cheating myself and the huge opportunity God has sent my way if I don't use this platform. So yes, I've received a lot of such emails. They make me think a lot. And of course, I'm sure over a period of time, they have an impact on my writing.
Right. About this responsibility, about things that you are writing about in your book, but also you mentioned caste system, you mentioned communal harmony and all those ideas. Some people may not like those ideas, for example, because equality, egalitarianism, they are not everyone's cup of tea, and particularly when it comes to people who are holding those privileged positions, because frankly nobody wants to give up their position of privilege and power.
Yeah.
So one very specific question about Kashi. Did you get some hate for that book?
No, in fact, I got so much love for that book, and especially from the people of Kashi, that in fact, I must share with you that releasing the whole Harappa trilogy in Hindi was actually because the people of Kashi pushed me. And I
Okay.
also must tell you that I met a senior government official of Uttar Pradesh in a public, he was a co-panelist. And in front of 300 people, he actually said that, Vineet, Uttar Pradesh tourism को आपको royalty देनी चाहिए, क्योंकि आपकी किताब काशी पढ़ने के बाद जितने लोग काशी का प्लान बना रहे हैं, वो पहले कभी नहीं होता था. And I kid you not, Nishtha, people have written to me for Kashi that can we have a Kashi tour? Like you have a Lord of the Rings tour, or you have a, can you organize a tour which takes you to all the places of Kashi that you've mentioned, from Sankat Mochan Mandir to Dashashwamedh Ghat to Kabir Chaura and even to Devrakshas Mutt, which of course the last one is a fictional place.
Yeah.
So there should be a tour of Kashi.
Yeah.
So I think that is that's I've only received love. And to answer your question about egalitarianism and people not liking, I think what people don't like is when you speak from one extremity. I think most of my readers have, if I write about, if I criticize the caste system, but along with that I start criticizing Hinduism, then there is a problem, because I'm taking an extreme view. And that is what, unfortunately, a lot of people start doing. So one, I do speak about, in Vidyut and Damini's conversation, in Mastan, you will see a lot about unity between Hindus and Muslims, because I truly believe that. I'm an armed forces officer's son, and I truly believe that this country belongs to all religions, all faiths, all castes equally. Having said that, that does not make me somebody who embarks upon, criticizing Hinduism at the first opportunity. So I have huge amount of respect for Hinduism, huge amount of respect for Sanatan Dharma. I think demonstrate that respect across all my books. I show my love for Kashi. I show my love for the Sankat Mochan Mandir. I will show my love for the Vedas. I will show my love for the Indian scriptures and all of that. And because I do that, I think I also get the moral and literary right to speak about the other side. What most people unfortunately end up doing is that, they throw the baby with the bathwater. They are talking about one element. I'll give you an example. I was at a literature festival in Aurangabad, and somebody was speaking about patriarchy in Hinduism and all of that. I said, look, of course, there are issues. हर जगह, कुछ ना कुछ कमजोरियां होती हैं, हर कहाँ नहीं होती हैं. But I said, if you look at the Hindu religion in its correct ethos, do you realize it is the only religion which worships the Almighty in the form of a goddess? If you look at Islam, I think Allah is supposed to be male. If you look at Christianity, of course, we are, it's Jesus, and Jesus is father. When you look at Sikhism, all the 10 gurus are males. It is only in Hinduism that you worship the Devi. It's only in Hinduism that no deity is actually worshipped without his wife or consort. If you are with Shiva, there is Parvati, Ram is with Sita, Krishna is with Radha, Ganesh is with Riddhi Siddhi. So a religion which says that education is actually Saraswati Mata, wealth is actually Lakshmi Mata, even nourishment is Annapurna Mata, falling ill and this is Sitla Mata. So a religion which speaks about, that worships the female form, that worships women in every manner possible. Why is it that we only speak about patriarchy for that particular religion? So my limited point here is that I do not take any stand of extremity. If I am sharing my huge amount of love and affection for a certain way of life, I also then find it important to be able to speak about the things that are negative. And I think so far my readers have absolutely embraced that and love this balance.
Right. Vineet, now to play the devil's advocate here, you can criticize, you have the moral right to criticize something that you have I mean, you can't criticize. I can't criticize your shirt because it's not my shirt, really. And if I want to change certain things, I can't force you to change your shirt. I can change my shirt, right? So when people say that, why would you only criticize Hinduism or the Hindu religion or the Hindu way of life and not some other religion? But as somebody who's either a practicing member of a particular community or a non-practicing one, but being born into that community, your moral right would be over that community, and the responsibility would be over that community and not outside, because you have no control over that. Of course, you have no control over your own community as well, but this is where you start. Right. So, what is wrong in if a Hindu wants to criticize the ills of his or her religion or community? What's wrong in that?
There is absolutely nothing wrong, and I would welcome that. In fact, I must tell you that I used to have a history teacher in back in college, who used to say that every generation is duty bound to indulge into religious debate and inquiry, and come out and basically abandon those elements of religion, of any religion or any faith, which are not relevant anymore, and add new elements, which make it more and more glowing and more relevant for the current society. So I am absolutely thrilled when I see, and I find it to be a huge privilege that in Hinduism you can sit and criticize your God, you can criticize your scriptures, you can criticize your rights, you can criticize the people, anything. And at worst, what will happen to you is some people will write a few bad comments on social media. Right?
That's not
I am
true.
proud. I am proud to be part of such an ethos which gives us the freedom to do all this. There is nobody who's going to enter my office and shoot 6 people because I made Lord Shiva in a disrespectful manner. It keeps happening all the time. What happened with the film PK? There was a lot of hue and cry, a lot of social media happened, and everything happened. But the movie became a blockbuster, and nothing really. There was no violence. There was nothing that really, you can call extremely unpleasant. So I welcome criticism. In fact, there should always be, religious debate and inquiry, and I think we should all embrace it.
Right. Now, coming back to
in fact, I would say some other faiths which are probably not so, I would say open, should take a leaf from, from Sanatan Dharma and see how self-confident and secure we are about, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to question, debate, write books, make movies, do whatever. Yes, there will be some element. I mean, we are, after all, Hindus are also human beings. They will find their areas of irritation and frustration, and they'll probably express it, over WhatsApp messages or social media. Nobody is going to come and burn your house down. Nobody is going to shoot people in your office. Nobody is going to declare a death warrant against you. So I think other religions can actually take a leaf from this.
नहीं हो लेकिन उल्टा रहा है. Hindus are learning from other faiths, as you say.
You're absolutely right, Nishtha. You're absolutely right. और बड़े अफसोस की बात है ये. And unfortunately, if you are a very peaceful person living in your house, minding your own business, but you are surrounded by saber rattling in the name of religion or in the name of God, or a combination of religion and politics, I think even the most the non-violent and even the most I would say benign communities will start indulging in similar saber rattling. And you're absolutely right. It is most unfortunate. At a few forums that I've gone and spoken, and somebody says that देखिए हिंदुओं का मजाक उड़ा दिया, जरा मुसलमानों का उड़ाकर दिखाएं तो देखिए उनका अगले ही दिन घर जला दिया जाएगा. So I actually say that आप भी क्या बनना चाहते हैं वैसे ही? Do you really want to be a community which is known for these kind of reactions? So you're absolutely right, and I in every way, everywhere that I go, I feel that it is the moderation and it is the assimilation of Hinduism which has always been its core strength, and I think it should always remain that.
Right. So I'm guessing that the sequel, your 1857 novel.
Nishtha, just one little thing. I have a hard stop in 5 minutes, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's all right. So this is actually going to be my last question.
Sure, sure.
So at this juncture, at this historical and social and political juncture of our society at the moment, of our country at the moment, you're talking about 1857, which some people actually hail as that glowing moment in Indian communal history, where the two communities had come together to fight an external oppressor. Right. So now I just want to understand from you that the sequel that you're going to present to your readers, is it going to be also about the present times? Because even when a writer is writing about history, present is present in that book.
No, absolutely, Nishtha. And I'm very cognizant of what is happening all around, when I'm writing these books. And there is a debate in the book, where there is a character called Chhagan Dubey, and who is debating with his best friend, about religion, the importance of religion, and all of that, and how. And I've kept today's environment in mind, and I have really, tried to do my best to really highlight what you've just mentioned, that it was a fabulous example of how the two communities came together, fighting for India and not fighting for any particular religion or god or faith or community. So I think it is an absolutely right question. And yes, when you read the book, you will find some elements and ideas of today's times.
Right. I also want to ask any questions that may come from the audience are welcome. Vineet has 3 more minutes. So, yes, whoever wants to shoot a question is happy to. Otherwise, I will ask my absolutely last question. So, after 1857, so this is one moment in Indian history that you have touched upon in 2 books. Do you have any other era or any other moment in history in mind for your future novels?
Yes, I'm. Several of them. In fact, I'm really keen to write about the city of Lucknow. I hail. I've of course been born and brought up here in Delhi, but my parents and grandparents, we hail from Lucknow, and it's such a mystical city. It's such a beautiful city. So just like Kashi, I have so much love for Banaras because my Nanihal was in Banaras. My mom comes from Kashi, and all my childhood, my summer vacations used to be spent there, and which is why you will see this deep love and deep affection that reflects for the city. And Delhi is another one. So I've already written about it, and the third one is Lucknow. I want to write about that. One reader shared a very cool observation and said, "Sir, do you really love rivers of this country?" And I said, "Why do you say that?" And he says, "No, because in Harappa you've written about the Saraswati River, then in Pralay and Kashi you've written about the Ganga, and now in Mastan it's Yamuna." And it was something that even I did not know. I was writing very naturally, and it struck me, yes, there is something mysterious about rivers which attracts me to them. So there are lots of ideas. जिसको कहते हैं ideas ज़्यादा हैं, समय कम. So I'm just trying to make the most of what I have.
Right. Thank you so much, Vineet. And I would now take this opportunity to do the curtain call for this beautiful discussion, if I may say so myself. But ultimately, my job is only to ask questions, and you have responded to all of them in a rather comprehensive and non-boring manner, which is very important.
No, I think it depends on the moderator. That's why, the moderator is also called sometimes the anchor, because, it's the moderator who really decides where the discussion goes. So I enjoyed every minute of it. I hope the audience also enjoys it. And thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody who has logged in for this discussion. And I'm sure you will be able to watch the recorded version as well if you have missed any parts of this fantastic discussion with Vineet Bajpai, author and entrepreneur, as he has very usefully educated me that he has still not become a full-time writer. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.